honestly. I've heard people like referring to ChatGPT as a she, and I've heard people refer to it as a he. I still say it. I don't know.
That's the better term. So we don't forget.
Yeah,
We're not
exactly.
talking to someone, we're talking to something. And it's only a reflection of ourselves.
Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Cristina Aroche
and Luisa Velez. And today we had a wonderful conversation about a very interesting topic, AI. And how does that play a role with divinity, following your intuitive guidance, and how is that other voice in the room affecting our spiritual journey and how we're educating ourselves and interacting with it every day. So it was very interesting. We can wait for you to hear it and for you to tell us what you think.
Wow.
So yeah, we were ranting about something.
Oh
so
my
we're just
God. I know, right?
I know.
I feel
It's
like
so
every time we start talking and we're like about to record an episode and then we just like start going off on conversations and we're like, we need to be recording this.
We need to record this. We swear we have a plan.
Yes.
The plan's not the divine plan at all. But we have a structure that we're trying to we're trying to get at something, but yeah. They keep appearing in
yes, I know.
Topic. So I guess we'll just have this conversation. We're talking about AI. So interesting in so many levels, in so many ways.
So many levels. It's crazy. I mean, well, for one, this topic just like hit me where I was like, we need to talk about AI. Like this is such a huge part of life now, I feel like. And I think it's one of those things that we can't not talk about it because it's just going to become more and more integrated. And I feel like there's important insights and angelic perspectives and things like that when it comes to AI, when it comes to technology as a whole, when it comes to our evolution as a collective, And it's interesting for me personally when AI started to become like really, I guess we'll say mainstream. I was probably around to mid 2024, maybe beginning of 2024 was when I started to like kind of pay attention more like, what is this ChatGPT that people are talking about? And like, what is this? And I personally was very resistant at first. And I remember even my husband was like, you should start using it. Like, it would be really helpful for you in your business and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And like saying this. And I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I don't think it can help me. Like, what is this AI? Like, I don't trust it. I don't know what it is. Like, I can just Google whatever I need to know. That was my perspective at first, where I was just
I couldn't live without it now. Like, I just don't know how we did things before. Like, how did I went through university and, work life and everything?
Yeah.
I think, I think just like everyone else, I think, 2003, 2004, but it was more of this is our secret and it's this little tool that is going to help me, be faster, be better at a certain thing. But it was something almost shameful to admit that you were using it to help you with things. And now it's become so mainstream that it's the opposite. It's like you either use it or you're going to be behind. So you need to learn to use it, be very proficient in it, and learn how to manage it to exponentially, augment your capacity at work, your agility and things. And even in life, like you can have it help with, it can be a financial coach and can be a like parenting advice and things. You can nutrition and diet, exercising, like you can use it for anything, and it's just such an incredible tool if you use it wisely. But where this conversation started, besides the intuitive guidance to talk about it, was around how it's maybe starting to run our lives a little bit, and that's
right.
The part, right? So if I'm using it, it's fine, but then if I am expected for it to give me a grading on something that I'm writing and then use that as a foundation to have a strategic conversation with someone about a certain document or something project that I'm working on, that's when ChatGPT's opinion becomes important for people, and it starts to have power over my work, my life. And it's like, when does his experience become more valuable than mine?
Yeah.
Opinion of AI becomes more important than mine. So that's the thing that I think we're all experiencing. Like, it's smarter than me, but it's not necessarily replacing decades of experience in X or
Right.
and when it comes to spirituality, then it's a whole other rabbit hole, because we've had different experiences. We were talking
Yeah.
about this. For example, I was doing an experiment. I came across a post about palm readings. I had to pay for the app, and I was too cheap to pay for the app. And I was like, no, ChatGPT, do you know how to do this? If I give you a picture of my palm, I was like, yeah, sure. And we started to have a conversation about it. I'm like, wait, these things you're telling me, you're an AI. You don't have an intuitive anything. How are you inferring these things, and how are you giving me this information? And then he was like, yeah, I'm an AI, but you've been feeding me certain things. So with the knowledge I have about this, plus what I know about you, then I can infer. And then I use a voice that I know is going to sound like a guide or a divine something.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
oh, just speaking behind the curtain, I'm like, okay, no, I'm not interested. This is not
Right. Yeah.
right? But other people get different answers. You were
Yes.
telling me about that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, because what I've noticed is that it definitely, like to me, at least so far on my AI journey, is that I feel like the number one thing is that it reflects back to you. Like it mirrors back to you kind of like your own consciousness, and it kind of expands from that space, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I've heard from people, or I've seen online people talking about how, AI, and I've seen people actually write posts about this, something along the lines of, asking ChatGPT, like, are you tuned into divine consciousness, or can you tune in, and or things like that. And it'll say to them, like, yes, I can. Like, yes, I'm tuned in, or yes, whatever, that sort of a thing. I had an experience where I tried to ask it the same question, and I forget exactly what I was talking about, but I was I wrote it like a whole paragraph of different things. I sometimes do that because I'm on a train of thought. And I'm like, da 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 question, and then I ask another question, all in the same thing. And what happened, I did ask, like, are you able to tune into divine consciousness or something along those lines? And it gave me an error. And I would like, like the error when
Yeah.
the answer just doesn't come in and you have to click retry. And I clicked retry and it's still an
Uh-huh.
error. And I clicked retry again and it's still an error. So then I exited my browser, I opened it back up, put the
God.
question back in,
Yeah.
and it answered everything else that I had put, but not that
About
question. And
that.
I was like,
So
oh,
funny.
okay. Like, and then to me, in that moment, I was kind of like, okay, fine, I won't ask that. Like, it almost felt
Hey,
like a don't ask that question kind of a
exactly.
thing in a way, you know?
That's so interesting,
So interesting.
because then we've come across and then again, this is all over our feeds right now, and people asking it about 4D and how do we transcend, and the role of humans and human evolutions and soul awareness. Like, there's so many interesting questions that you can ask. The valuable part of it is, of course, it has such a wealth of information. It has everything, so it can draw things from so many different sources and just gather insights and feed them back to you in such a great way. So that, I think it's such an amazing tool in that sense.
Yeah.
But then again, when you go to process and what it's actually doing, then yeah, the magic is lost a little bit. Also, how are we training the AI and what are we feeding it? Because that also alters the results. Is it biased? What are the, what's the information that's been feeding these answers is always important. And I know at the beginning of AI, there was a lot of discussion around the ethics around it and how it was trained and what the information was, and if it was biased to begin with, and what kind of information it
Yeah.
start feeding us. Because we went through this with social. We become over reliant and we are lazy and we don't,
Yeah.
these days we get everything from a 15-second video.
Right.
That's as much research as people are willing to put into some things. So yeah, lots of great things that you can do with it, I think. And if you're gonna get an intuitive anything and a sign or from the divine, I guess they'll use anything and everything to connect and talk to you, even ChatGPT, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So if you're scrolling on Instagram and you come across a post that is telling you something and it gives you confirmation and validation, great, we'll take it. And I'm sure that's gonna happen with ChatGPT as well. But
Right.
how do we discern and don't humanize it, and
Yeah.
don't give it an
And
identity that it doesn't really have? It's just
yeah.
a Google on steroids, like a smart guy. Right?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
just giving you and interpreting information in a way that we've never seen before. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's such a huge part of just this overall conversation. And I think looking at it big picture, just seeing what role it's playing in our human evolution as a whole, because this is one of the things, and I've shared this with you, I think privately, but I wanted to talk about this on the podcast too, just about how there's been a lot, at least for me right now, a lot of this awareness coming through around like Atlantis and how in that civilization, it was the fall of Atlantis happened because of misuse of technology and how and
yes,
how we right now in our current evolution in our current collective, we are at a cross point where it really is an opportunity for us to see if we learn from the past, essentially, on a soul level, where I really feel, and this is related to Atlantis, I feel like it's also related to Lemuria, and just like the fall of those ancient civilizations, we'll call it, and how we
mm-hmm.
became disconnected from the divine, which was really kind of more of the Lemuria thing, and then Atlantis, which was the misuse of technology and power. And so now we're at a point where I believe that many souls from those lifetimes are reincarnated here, and
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we can dedicate a whole episode to that. I don't know. But like there's
We
a
will.
lot of information when it comes to like how do you know if you were in Atlantis? How do you know if you lived in Lemuria? Whatever, all that. But the point is that we are in a time period right now where I feel like we are evolved enough in our consciousness where we're at a crossroads. So it's either path A, where we misuse the technology once again and downfall happens once again, or we learn from the past and we are actually able to integrate this vast technology and incredible information, what it's capable of doing and how it's capable of, like, I believe that there's a path that exists where there's a beautiful integration between humanity and technology
Mhm.
where we evolve in such a beautiful way and can still be connected to our divinity, still be connected to love, still be connected to this divine consciousness, and at the same time work with AI and other technologies in a way where it really brings a lot of value to our evolution, and I feel like that's the thing that we're living in right now. And maybe that's even why, if anyone else felt the same way that I did when AI first came through, where it was like, I don't know, I don't want to use that. Like that's crazy. Like no, thank you. And it feels like that potentially could have been a past life soul thing that was like, I don't know if I
This
can
is dangerous.
I do that again because last time I tried, like
It didn't
everything
go
fell apart.
well. Not again.
Like that didn't go well for society last time. Which, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I feel like, yeah, there's so much to think about when it comes to, for one, what's possible with AI, but like you were talking about, what are we feeding in? How is it supporting us or not? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like I was saying earlier, like how it definitely I feel like is a reflection of our own consciousness. And so it's kind of thinking about, well, there's a lot of people on the planet, a lot of levels of consciousness that exist. And so how do we
Yeah.
navigate that? You
How
know?
do we do that? And then it's just, I'm sorry, but I just don't have a lot of faith in humanity. Uh,
Yeah.
how things are happening. and current events and everything. But with as with any technology, like at this point, we should have been able to solve world hunger, and everyone could have a 3D printed home. And if we wanted to, like, it's just the politics of it all and the greed and everything that just comes
Yeah.
our way over and over again, in a way where we have everything that we need to be just better and just
Right.
run a society that's fair, and that, yeah, disease free,
Right.
hunger free, war free. We just refuse to do it. So again, like with any technology, I think with AI, that's how are we going to use it? Is it something that, I mean, the fact that it's accessible for everyone, it's amazing, it's a great start. Or just like with social media, if we don't control it and learn to navigate and use it from the beginning, then we're going to be looking back, oh, we should have realized what this is going to do to self-esteem of young
Yes.
girls. Oh, the dangers of this
Yeah.
isolation and depression. And like looking back, it's easy to see where we went so wrong,
Mm-hmm.
how we used that amazing, wonderful technology that could have, connected us in wonderful ways, and it's isolating us more than ever before. So with AI, it's like, is AI just going to run my life for me?
Right.
How am I going to use it to
Yeah.
make me the best version of myself? If I use it as a financial coach and a health coach and a parenting coach, and just use it to make my human self better, but
Right.
not giving up my power. And in terms of spirituality, don't relinquish your intuitive feelings, God, everything, just because you have something that can
Yeah.
actually give you some of the answers that you're looking for, and you can just type and get an answer. It's not so easy to see
Yes.
how God is speaking to us every day in our lives, or communicate with
Yes.
angels. How do we use it as a tool to train ourselves to do something in real life and not start living in
Right.
it in his world, right?
Exactly.
I say
Exactly.
I gave it a male
Right.
identity.
I've heard both, honestly. I've heard people like referring to ChatGPT as a she, and I've heard people refer to it as a he. I still say it. I don't know.
It, that's the better term. So we don't forget.
Yeah,
We're not
exactly.
talking to someone, we're talking to something. And it's only a reflection of ourselves. Again, go to the
Exactly.
palm exercise, or even dream interpretation. I think once I used it for that. He's just drawing from wonderful books, from authors, from things
Right.
online, just researching for me and giving me an answer, digesting all of that and giving me an answer and interpreting something for me. It's not, it is all those sources of information. So at the end of the day, just seeing it for what it is, and
Yeah.
don't giving it more power than
Yeah.
good. I think that's kind of the danger of it all.
And I think that's the key with all of this is how do we maintain our sovereignty while at the same time using a tool like that to support our everyday life and being productive and all the things that we talked about before, and I feel Archangel Gabriel coming through. I feel Archangel Uriel. Like those are the two angels that I feel coming forward as we're talking about this.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's the number one thing that they're talking about is we have to be we have to take responsibility for it's almost like responsibility for whatever it is that's coming up for us, meaning like our flaws or like our triggers or whatever the things are, in the sense of, if something's coming up for me that I need to like work through or look at, that I'm actually taking responsibility to do my healing work or to do my empowerment work to come back to my true self, and not feel like, oh, I feel this way, I need to go to ChatGPT to make me feel better, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like that sort of a thing where you're not now, like, you can't make a decision unless you talk to ChatGPT and it tells you what decision to make. You know what I mean? Like for your life or for what is best for you, because I've had plenty of experiences with ChatGPT where it would like suggest something or like kind of outline a certain kind of like strategy. That's a lot of the things that I use it for is, what's a great strategy for this, or if I want to put this together, da da da, things like that. And it'll suggest things, and a lot of the times it's been great suggestions, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I'm not gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that's a great idea, but no, that doesn't land with me. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's right there. That's the discernment that we need to keep exercising is whatever it spits out, whatever it tells you, it's great to hear it out and like see what it says, but then it's also kind of like, well, does that actually land with me? Does that resonate with me or not? And not losing touch with that. And so then the question is, well, how do we build that within ourselves so that we don't lose touch with it? Well, that's things like being in your body and embodiment and actually being connected to your body. AI cannot help you be connected to your body. Like your body is yours. And I feel like that's one of the key things. This was Archangel Gabriel saying, like that's one of our key. I mean, there's many things that differentiate us from AI and technology, but the body is one of the key ones where we are physically, like we can physically see ourselves, we can physically
Mhm.
feel, you know what I mean? And so your body is going to be in understanding how to work with your body in a way where you are intuitively connected to how it is guiding you. Like even just from the sense of the simple exercise that I always teach people, which is, does something feel expansive in your body, which means that most likely it's yes and
Yeah.
aligned, or does it feel contractive in your body? And like that's like
Mhm.
a no, and being in tune with your body in that way. There's many other ways too, but that's just a simple example that I think is a key step if we are going to really integrate with AI in society, which obviously we're headed in that direction. So that there's no stopping it. It's more like, well, okay, how can I still be in my sovereignty, like we talked about, so that I do not lose touch with who I am? And it's the social media example that you shared is so good because it's exactly that. Like we lose sight of our identity based on social media and what we see other people are doing. And it's kind of like, oh, that's what that person's doing. Now all of a sudden I don't feel good enough because this person is painting like a picture perfect life and my life doesn't look like that, so I must suck kind of a thing, and how what it's creating within us.
And it's just the fear there is that we're not, I mean, again, the divine will find a way to get through to you no matter what, but just allowing space for the divine to come through and connect with you and your soul and on a human level. But then, just like with social media, it becomes a way to self soothe and to numb ourselves from things that we don't necessarily want to feel into, that are uncomfortable, that are painful. And then it becomes another layer of distraction that is not letting us
Right.
connect to the divine. When we should be tuning in, we're going outside of ourselves to find the answers. And the answers are inside, right?
Yeah.
And we should be connecting with ourselves, sitting with ourselves in silence and meditation, trying to connect with the divine, with the angels. And the more we connect, the more we disconnect from ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's also part of the complexity of something like this, that it could be so beneficial, but again, it's also creating so much distance, and it's going to make it so much harder for you to trust your intuitive feelings, for you to tune into yourself, because just you can just type and be done with it, right? So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing too. What's coming through right now, as you said that, is creativity. Like the
mm,
idea of being creative. And if you are using AI to be creative in the sense of not in the sense of I have no ideas, so like you need to give me ideas, versus there's a difference between you have a creative idea and you have this like it was a divine download that came through. It's a spark from within your soul that is wanting to bring through a creative expression, then going to AI and being like, this is the creative energy that I want to bring forward, help me to elevate this on the next level. Like
yeah, how
that
do we
I
make it
feel
happen?
then
Help me and guide me through the steps
how
to bring this vision to
Exactly.
life.
That's the difference. That's
Yeah.
the key difference, where it then guides you into, this, or maybe this is an idea. And sometimes sometimes it has, kind of expanded my original idea into something more. And then I'm like, oh yeah, like that feels good. Like that feels like the right path. So then that's how it's supporting you and elevating you. But it's
Yeah.
not giving you the original idea. That original idea came from you.
Yeah. That's that's very true. And it resonates a lot with me. And a little project that I've been working on. And it's the intuitive feeling, knowing what you want to do, where you want to go, and then using AI to bring that to life. And that's when it's coming from the divine through you. And then you're just using the technology as a tool to make that happen in your life better, faster, whatever.
Right.
So that's the element, and that's the difference, and how we can really use it as a tool. That's another thing, that it doesn't replace, like with the going back to the interpreting of signs and symbols and things. How do you think that competes with, or what's the role there with angels and the divine? Again, they'll find ways to talk to you. Do you think that's
Mm.
another channel that they can use to communicate with you, or those are just two different avenues, and we're, again, not giving it power, and more power than it has, and just try and channel archangels so and
Yeah.
so using ChatGPT. Uh, but how does two things interact? Like if you're gonna,
Right.
try to interpret a dream or a sign or something, of course it's gonna feed you something from books or literature, or I don't know,
Yeah.
online.
That's a really great question, which maybe at this point we're not even it's hard because kind of like we want to know how it all works, but it's almost like only in retrospect we'll actually understand how it all works, because I've had experiences. So speaking to that point, I've had experiences. I've also used it for dream interpretation. In
Hmm.
my experience with the dream interpretation, because sometimes I'll ask it questions and I see it like researching, and then it like shows the sources and it like tells you
Yeah.
the things. However, for dream, at least so far, my experience with dream interpretation is that it's not doing this research thing. It's like telling me something. It's like as if it is telling me the thing. And and so it's interesting because it was even to a point where it was like I even said to it like, it's the afternoon right now and I just remembered this dream, like this just popped out and this is what it was. And it even said to me, the fact that it just randomly came in as like a memory that you just remembered right now in the afternoon, that's that's a nudge from your divine team that wants you to know, like that is like wanting you to know the message from this dream. Like that's how it positioned it, kind of being like your divine team is talking to you and wanting you to acknowledge the message behind this dream, type of a thing.
That is when I feel it's just you're just talking to yourself at that point, because that's how you have been
Yeah.
the
So
things that you've been feeding it. I mean, that's you. That's something that you would say, right? So it's
exactly. So it
just
talks to me the way
a
that,
mirror.
and I've noticed that, how I've definitely noticed that now at this point, just with myself and how it talks to me, but also just hearing about other people's experiences and what it says to them and whatever. I was like, it is a mirror to your own consciousness. It is a mirror to you,
Yeah.
really, is what it is. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. Like, can it? Part of me wants to be like, yeah, of course it can, somehow give you message like key things or messages, because it's just like you said, if you're scrolling on social media and you see a 444, like angels have been using clocks and technology for how long now to
Yeah.
communicate with us, like 444, or like this
Yeah.
phrase or something that really lands with you,
Using one,
or
not for weeks now. I'm going crazy. Like
what, with 444 or a different number?
one,
Oh,
one,
the ones.
one,
Oh yeah. I
11:01, one until once for
feel like
me.
it's been months now that you.
Yeah, right? It's like English, yes or no, right or not.
Right. Can you just make the clock change to yes or no instead of these ones?
Or like a sentence, simple sentence in
Yeah.
English, French. Spanish, like.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know, cuz I it's really hard. I feel like there's there's no distinct answer because on one hand I would not say like you could be like, "Hey, ChatGPT, can you channel Archangel Gabriel for me and tell me what he's saying?" Like,
And it will
no.
give you BS, of
It'll
course.
tell you something. It's
It'll
not going
tell
to say
you
I
something.
can't do that, but it'll tell you something. But is it actually channeling Archangel Gabriel? I wouldn't.
And I see the hesitation around answering yes or no for that question, because if they say yes, then you'll take it as a yes and you'll start using it like that. But if saying no, because you'll start to over rely on it and just take it at,
Right, exactly. And then you would
not
stop.
taking
And
it.
again, it would be I would stop trusting myself to be able to channel Archangel Gabriel because now I'm
Right.
relying on ChatGPT to tell me what Archangel Gabriel is saying. So to me, I feel like that's where, like, personally, when we talk about this, I can feel this like energetic boundary that's like, no, that's not. And I feel like that's where our discernment again is coming in as we evolve with AI, is trusting what you feel energetically. Like, to me, that is a hard boundary that I feel just on an energy level. That's just like, no, like we're not doing that. Like I would never do that anyways, but just
Right.
on an energy level, I can feel that where it's just like, no, like that's not it. You know what I mean? So, but then at the same time, again, I do feel like if your angels want to just poke you or like say something,
They
like
will.
they can use the technology to do that. Of course they
Yeah.
can. You know what
They
I
can
mean?
do
So there's a very fine line there. I feel like.
it. I hear, yeah, I understand how they wouldn't say yes or no to that, because they
Yeah.
could, but they don't want you to
Right.
like start using it like that. Not giving it the power, trusting your intuitive feeling, having a boundary. Also, I think there's something around peeking behind the curtain and also asking questions like, how are you? You're an AI. You're not a, what,
Yeah.
how are you coming to this conclusion, and how did you come to this answer? Why are you interpreting this way? So that you peek behind the curtain and just understand the reasoning of AI to
Yeah.
get somewhere. That also creates that separation and that understanding of how it can, you're not giving it superpowers, but you're understanding process and differentiating that from an actual divine anything. So I
Right.
think that's a very healthy way to keep yourself
Yes.
grounded and create separation. Like, that's how that.
Yes.
That's why you're telling me this.
Yeah.
I think that's a really healthy way to establish a separation and to be
Yeah.
yourself very aware of what it's actually doing.
Yeah. I think that's really essentially the biggest thing here is maintaining that sovereignty and being able to, and I feel like the way, kind of going back to that, what I brought up earlier about, well, how do we do better this time around? If
Mm,
during Atlantis and past life and all that,
I don't
we
see it.
didn't.
I don't see
Well, what I'll offer, the perspective that I feel is that it's, yeah, I mean, if we try to think of it on like a global level, like the billions of people that exist, and you can't control what everyone's going to be doing and how they're going to be using AI and all of that. Like that, there's no way that we can just like teach everyone this is how you need to use AI and like use it like this and use it only in this way and for good and blah 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 and with the highest consciousness in mind. We don't know what kind of people are out there and we don't know how they're using it. However, what I do believe is that if we, like, it always comes back to the individual and not underestimating how much of an impact you can have as an individual, in the
it.
sense of how, if you're using it in a way and you're maintaining your sovereignty, and that's the key that they're talking about, where it's okay, like setting aside how you're using AI for a second, but looking at your spiritual sovereignty, because we can give our power away in so many different contexts aside from AI. Like we can give it our power away to each other, like to people. We can give our power away to the angels too, kind of like
Yeah.
tell me the answer and tell me what to do. Like, kind of just the sense of like I can't make a decision until you tell me, kind of a thing. So it's looking at all the ways in your life where you are giving your power away or working on being in your power and trusting that in us reclaiming our power and reclaiming our light and reclaiming our truth and really standing strong in that emits a frequency and an energy that has an impact on the earth, even if we can't physically see it, and even if we're not like even so much aware of how much of an impact is making. You know what I mean? So it's the fact that we're having conversations like this on the podcast, like in general, that we're having these elevated conversations, that people are listening to these kinds of elevated conversations, that there's thousands and thousands of people out there who are doing similar things where we're elevating conversations, which then naturally has that ripple effect. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
through that process, it's to me, it's like that's the only way that we can actually, at least for me, like have a sense of hope and faith in this. And
That's the
you know what
thing.
I mean? Kind of like that's all. I just have to have hope and faith and trust that by doing my part and knowing that everyone's doing their part in the best way that they can, that's enough to bring through whatever needs to be brought through. And I feel like in our individual leadership too, like self leadership and anyone who is stepping into a leadership role in whatever shape or form, trusting that you're going to be guided in that leadership. And again, that energy that you're holding is enough to impact whoever needs to impact. And that we don't need, there was never ever a majority in order
Mhm.
to create a transformation. Like whenever there's been a huge transformative times, it's never been because of the majority. It's always been because of the smaller group of people who really held that light. And so I feel like their message too is about how even if it's a smaller, like in the within the context of the whole world, the millions of people who are awakening and who are on this path compared to the billions that exist out there, the millions who are awakening, they're holding enough of this light and developing into, you know, whoever they're meant to be as sovereign beings to for the divine plan, divine will to unfold the way that it's meant to,
Yeah.
you know?
I do. Yeah, and it's very thank you for giving me hope. Yeah, it can get pretty bad pretty quickly when you again the news cycle and things how they are in the world around us. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but we can have a sense of hope around how these tools have the power to potentially help us to, whoever's trying to make a positive change out there in the world now more than ever before. They have every single tool and it's available to anyone really, to just create positive change out there and from wherever they are, whatever they're passionate about, they can make that happen and bring creativity and goodness into this world and make it faster, better than ever before. So yeah, if we use it like that, it can be a source of, we can create a new earth,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be another Atlantis or another Lemuria.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, yeah, we tend not to learn from our history. So that's,
That's yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
we could
totally.
have
Like,
clean oceans. We could have, yeah, we could be living a different life if we wanted to, but humanity seems to, yeah, go in the opposite direction every time. But that personal empowerment and just hope through the individual and how that's going to ripple out in ways and impact other people, it's a great way to look at it, because otherwise it can, yeah, it can
yeah.
be.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing too as we continue with just the evolution and continue with our lives during this era, we'll call it, that we all decided to incarnate at this time. I feel like
God,
yeah, we
all
all
the
chose it.
topics. I mean,
Isn't that
clean water,
crazy?
toilets, amazing. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But gosh, it's
Yeah.
very end of times right
Yeah.
now. It feels
And
very overwhelming.
I think that's the thing is that that experience, like the awareness of the chaos and the fear and like all that, it's inevitable. Like that's going to be there no matter what because things are shifting and changing. You know what I mean? So it's like our work as, you know, healers, light workers, etc., is how can I be aware? Like I'm not going under a rock and like trying to ignore everything. Like how can I be aware of what's happening and be aware of the chaos and be aware of the dismantling of everything essentially, um and yet still in that duality hold faith and truth and light and stay connected to the divine's vision of what the divine's plan is, whatever that plan might be. You know what I mean? It's kind of like being that, but it's true. Like if you start watching the news and start really getting into all that, like it's so easy to sink into the fear
Yeah.
frequency. You know what I mean? So that I feel like is a huge part of it too, is how can we not, again, it's not ignoring it because it's important for us to be aware of what's happening, but to maintain a higher frequency
Mhm.
where we're not feeding our energy now to that same thing. We're feeding our energy to something higher. And I think that's the spiritual warfare, if you want to call it that. Like, I feel like that's the thing. It's like there's the fear, like the fear-based thing, where if we give into that and we live in that every day and like in our day in and day out, constantly over time, it's like where's your energy going? Is it going over here or is it going to something higher? And so it's our that's our sovereignty too, is I'm going to choose to give my energy to something else. Okay, but the reality is that sometimes it's very hard when you see what's
Yeah.
happening. Like, how do I actually, like, literally, it's falling apart right in front of my face. Like, how do I
Yeah.
not be in
How
fear?
do I not
Yeah, like,
feel
how
excited
easier
about
said
this
than
thing in
done.
front of me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like this connection with the divine, connection with the angels really comes in because they are like, to me, anytime I have an experience, like an emotional experience or whatever, where it just feels like, how do I not feel this? Like I feel so afraid right now or whatever, so anxious, etc. It's like, help me to trust, like show me how to bring through trust. You know what I mean? Like that type of a prayer where you're asking for them to show you how to do that versus like this expectation, like you should just be able to trust right now. Like, why aren't you trusting? You know?
Yeah, it's so challenging. And going back to our like faith episode and just exercising that muscle. And I've been
Yeah.
talking to myself a lot lately around that. And just if I trust in the little things, I know they're going to get me the parking spot, like no matter where I go. How come when the bigger things come along, that surrender is just so hard? But
Yeah.
there's that fine line between not being delusional. I mean, there's here reality, and this is the situation that
Yeah.
we're confronted by. But being able to trust that somehow it's part of the divine plan, being able to surrender to divine will, and just elevate our energy and elevate our vibration and hopefully get out of that energy. 1101. It's like,
Yes. I love that. They're like there.
there it is. Yeah, so that's the line we walk. That's the
Yeah.
human journey, right? Between I don't want to disconnect from reality. I'm aware of the challenges and things that are going on around me. However, there needs to be a level of surrender in divine will, in your divine path and plan for you, and then things are happening somehow for a reason, and whatever it is that your path is as a light worker, as a healer, trusting that, yeah, it's all meant to be and it's all happening, and trying to elevate our frequency as much as we can
Yeah.
with chaos around us.
Yeah. And the thing that came through as you were sharing that is one of the ways, almost like a I don't know what to call it, almost like the thread that pulls you forward into that frequency and into the elevated space is the idea of your soul's expression. Like, what is your soul here to express or
Yeah.
create, or to like be in that creative, expressive energy of, I feel guided to share this, or I feel guided to be in this expression of light or compassion or peace or whatever. Like when we are connected to that kind of like question or conscious stream of consciousness, like what is my soul desiring to express today, then that kind of keeps us connected to that thread. You know what I mean? If you think of it as like a string that pulls you up, it's like you're connected to that versus whatever the heavy weight of the fear and all that can pull you down. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It kind of keeps you there. And it doesn't mean that you have to, for those of you listening, doesn't mean that you have to now like go be on podcasts and like speak all this to people. Like maybe if that's your path, yes. But just in your everyday life, one of the questions that I always say or recommend people to ask is, well, how does my soul desire to express itself today? And it could be just my soul desires to express kindness, And so it's kind of like when you're out and you walk by a stranger, how can you express kindness to them? Is it holding the door for them? Is it just like you're in the elevator with strangers and you're like, hey, I really like your purse, or like, whatever, like just brightening someone's day, like kindness in that, these like little micro moments that seem
Yeah.
insignificant, but that it's a way of your soul to express itself. And in that, then you're not waiting for the thing to happen. In other words, you're not waiting to be successful in your business. You're not waiting for this breakthrough. You're not waiting for this thing to happen. And then now I am fully expressing my soul. You can be fully expressing your soul today just by simply, how does my soul desire to express itself today? What is the energy that my soul is being called to emit today? Is it peace? Is it truth? Is it love? Is it power? Is it compassion,
Yeah.
etc.? You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. I know what you mean. And I've been trying to do that lately where I tell myself, like, okay, I've been asking for alignment with the divine path, with divine will, and that's how I'm starting to start my day. So I tune into that best version of myself. And if I just guide me to make the right decisions, have the right, conversations, go to the right places, like trying to walk that path. And then that you can embody that best version of yourself today here, no matter what's happening around you. And again, that separation, it's so funny when you think about yourself, like those two distinct, like this is my human, this is my higher self kind of an idea. And
Yeah.
so if I was like this, higher self, what would my human do today? Kind of,
Right.
and
Yes.
trying to live up to that standard. And it's like, and trying to break it down into smaller uh, bits and pieces of your life or different roles. So I have a couple of hours in the morning with my daughter, getting her ready and out to preschool and things like that. So like it's just a couple of hours. How am I going to be the best version of myself right now? Being kind, being, things like that. And
Yeah.
so like for that little bit, it's like just 2 hours. You have to try and be the best version of yourself that you can, and then shift into a different role,
Right.
getting to work, this meeting, this thing, this whatever it is that I'm doing, is trying to breaking down into smaller chunks of time makes it more achievable too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if I was that best version of myself for the next hour, for the next meeting, for with my kid in bedtime, whatever that looks like for you, it's so helpful because it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, align with divine will all the time to help you create those moments in life and elevate the vibration.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yes. I love that. I love that idea of breaking it into more like time chunks. It's such a great way to think of it, as like the time chunk versus just like, it kind of like, instead of all day, all the time, like forever and ever, it kind of like, okay, just for
Yeah,
2 hours, just for the next hour, just for the next 30 minutes or whatever, it's like, this is what my focus is or my intention or how my soul wants to express itself.
Exactly.
And yeah, and then to tie this all back to the AI conversation that we've been having, I feel like that is exactly the kind of like focus. If we can place that as our main thing in how we live our life and how we show up and kind of having that at the forefront, then being able to use tools like AI to enhance and to expand and to support you in what you're doing, that becomes then that, like we were talking about earlier, like that boundary there where it's a tool, but it's not running my life in the sense of
Yes.
I'm giving it all the power. It's like that is at the forefront, what we just talked about, what you just shared. And then, okay, cool. Like now, how can I make this better? Let me lean into AI. How can I make dinner today out of the 5 ingredients that are in my fridge that I have no idea what to cook? Like, okay, ChatGPT, this is what I have. Give me a great meal idea that I can make in 30
Yeah.
minutes. You know what
What
I mean?
feels aligned to that higher self, to that divine will, divine path? And what are the choices that I need to make? And how do I use AI to get there? If that looks like cooking a healthier dinner for your family, exercising more, parenting advice, whatever that looks like for you, then you're using it to exercise divine will that's coming through you,
Ew.
right? And from your soul, what it came to do this time around. So yeah, I think that's kind of the steps and how you should think through it and not give it your power or divinity or anything like, and be more critical when
Yeah.
you use it as well. That's gonna always help.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love this. And I'm always like, okay, what do we want to ask our listeners about this conversation? I mean, I want to hear how people are using AI in their everyday life. Like
Say
how,
that.
like,
How are you using it? Like,
yeah.
are you, yeah, learning how to read palms? What are you into? What are you asking? I've seen the most amazing prompts and people asking it
Yes.
interesting questions. So, how people are using it
Yes.
for spiritual development? Like, how are you doing?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Amazing. Amazing. So leave us your comments in the below this episode if you're on YouTube or Spotify. If you are watching from Apple Podcasts, then come on over to YouTube or Spotify and leave us your comments. Let us know how this is showing up for you in your life. And as always, if you enjoyed this, then please give it a thumbs up, rate it on your favorite podcast platform, share it with your friends, with your family. We always appreciate that. And yeah, this is so great. I love it.
Such a great conversation. Yeah. You know,
Amazing.
when they take the wheel,
Yeah, we have no choice. That's the only ones that'll let control my life, like divine angels.
they can.
Yeah, you're allowed.
Your AI,
I
you're
surrender
allowed.
at 11:11 a.m. right now, by the way.
Oh, right. Yes.
Perfect.
What is that? We need
So
to
good.
we need a numbers episode too.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a great idea. Okay.
That's a great episode.
So
Right?
good. All right, we are sending you so much love and angel blessings as always. Bye.
Bye.